Raghunath ji, can I begin?
We are live, you can continue.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we are live on YouTube, you can continue.
Okay. A very good morning to all. I, Dr. Parul Singh, Meerut. On behalf
Parul ma'am, you are not audible.
I'm so sorry. Do I have to begin again? If nobody has heard what I said? Okay, I'll begin again. A very good morning to all. I, Dr. Parul Singh, Professor and Head, Department of English, Raghunath Girls Postgraduate College, Meerut, on behalf of the Department of English, Department of Sanskrit, Indian Knowledge System Cell, and Rabindranath Tagore Cultural Club, welcome you all to day 5 of the 5-day lecture series of the Faculty and Students Enrichment Program. I extend a warm welcome to our dynamic principal, Professor Nivedita Kumariji, our esteemed and multi-dimensional resource person, Professor Vinita Chawdhry, Professor of English at Govt Hamidia Arts and Commerce College, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, faculty members of our college and various other colleges, and dear students. The Faculty and Students Enrichment Program on the topic Indian Classical Literature, Exploring Dimensions and Perspectives has been organized with the objective to disseminate knowledge, information, and wisdom inherent in the rich ancient Indian classical texts, which are fecund sources of the Indian knowledge system from the ancient to the modern contemporary times. To create a renewed interest and following among the masses of their culture and tradition, we hope to inspire the students and the faculty alike. The exploration and exposition of the various perspectives and dimensions inherent in the Indian classical texts by our esteemed and highly knowledgeable resource persons from the field of English and Sanskrit language and literature, be it through philosophy and culture, dwelling upon Indian dramaturgy, comparative exploration of Ras theory and Western aesthetics, भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा से प्राप्त नैतिक मूल्यों की उपादेयता and unveiling of ancient texts through English literary lenses has added great value to our endeavor. I'm sure the faculty and students will truly be enriched and enlightened by these explorations. On this note, I have the proud privilege to extend a hearty welcome to Professor Vinita Chawdhry once again and introduce her to you. A renowned scholar and academician, Dr. Vinita Singh Chawdhry, Professor of English at Govt Hamidia Arts and Commerce College, Bhopal, is with us today. Ma'am brings over 35 years of experience teaching English language and literature at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels across Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. Professor Vinita Singh has completed her graduation course from our college, that is Raghunath Girls Postgraduate College, We are happy to invite her as an alumna at the undergraduate level. She's a gold medalist in MA English from the Institute of Advanced Studies, Meerut University, and an alumna of Sophia Girls School, Meerut. She ranked in the top 5 list of aspirants in Madhya Pradesh Public Service Commission exams for both assistant professor and professor. Her expertise includes British and Indian literature, Indian knowledge traditions, gender studies, comparative literature, multiculturalism, and globalization. Dr. Chawdhry has guided 12 PhD scholars. She has published widely in national and international forums. She has authored a book on Jane Austen and co-edited 14 English textbooks for Madhya Pradesh. A recognized national trainer certified by Thames Valley University, United Kingdom. She has developed modules on communicative English and language proficiency. She has benefited over 65,000 learners, As a resource person, she delivers lectures on communication and leadership for IAS, IPS, and other administrative officers and contributes to NAC quality assurance initiatives as an IQAC coordinator. Dr. Chawdhry is also a curriculum expert for integrating Indian knowledge systems at the state level and remains actively involved in virtual teaching, COMET programs, and book reviews for IAS training. I now invite our principal ma'am, if she is there on the Zoom meeting, to welcome Professor Vinita Singh Chawdhry. So here I extend a warm welcome to our progressive and dynamic principal, Professor Nivedita Kumari, who is strongly aligned to the virtues of honesty, integrity, sincerity, commitment, and dedication. Ma'am is extremely active and ensures that her time is well spent in progressive and constructive activities for the continued growth of the college. If ma'am is there, I request ma'am to say a few words on this occasion. I believe Principal Ma'am is busy in some important work. So we'll welcome her once again. So now this gives me an opportunity to invite Professor Vinita Singh Chawdhry to deliver her lecture on the topic Echoes of Eternity, Unveiling Ancient Texts Through English Literary Lenses. Welcome, ma'am. Ma'am, I think you are on mute.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Distinguished guests, esteemed faculty, dear students, and of course the organizers. I extend my warmest greetings to you all on this auspicious morning. Professor Nivedita Kumari, Principal and Patron, RGPG College, Professor Parul Singh, Head of the Department, and the team of organizers. I'm deeply grateful for the invitation to be a part of this prestigious 5-day lecture session. Your broad area is Indian classical literature, exploring dimensions and perspectives. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Parul, madam, I would like to share my PPT. So just let me know if it is visible to all of you.
Okay, ma'am.
Kindly turn on the request for sharing. It is not giving me request.
Okay. Can you
Send the
please
request.
call Mahboob sir? So ma'am wants to present her PPT. Ma'am, I'm just asking him to accept this
All right.
request.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll continue till then. So friends,
Okay.
first of all, thanks once again for accommodating here virtually because I was not able to come. And thank you so much once again. I'm really delighted to introduce you all to the fascinating world of ancient texts explored through the lens of English literature. In the last 5 days, I'm sure you've also gone through, this great timeless journey. So the topic that I'm going to take up today is in context of English literature. This topic invites all of us to delve into the timeless wisdom of Indian classical literature and also its profound impact on the global literary traditions. जिसे कहते हैं ना सार्वभौमिक मूल्यों का भंडार है. It is a treasure house and what all we can get from this treasure house. So when we view them through English literary framework, we can say we are opening up so many avenues for dialogue between the ancient as well as the modern, the East as well as West. Let me just check if I can share now. Yes. Please let me know, Parul madam, is my PPT visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible to everyone.
Thanks so much. Oh, thank you. So as the topic on the screen, friends, Echoes of Eternity, Unveiling Ancient Texts Through English Literary Lenses. So basically, we are going to adopt a multidisciplinary approach in this. How we are going to take up this approach, how is this approach going to bridge up the gap between the different academic disciplines on one hand, and also the art by examining the texts. What is the enduring relevance of these texts? How are they contributing? How are they going to be preserved? And finally, a reinterpretation to the new audience. We have youngsters with us, UG and PG graduates are there, research scholars and the faculty. So this perspective today, this interaction today is going to help us to understand about the ancient Indian literature and how we can bridge up this gap when we apply it to the English, from the English literary lenses. So we know, friends, that English literature or the Indian classical literature, it is a treasure house. It has got that universal appeal and of course the relevance. कितना प्रासंगिक है और साथ ही साथ कितना जीवंत है, ये हम आगे अभी देखेंगे as we go further in this direction. Now, before I go on with this, we know that yes, it was actually decided by the new education policy. And in the new education policy, it was given that we have to incorporate and inculcate the Indian classical tradition in our syllabi. We've been working in Madhya Pradesh too in this particular direction. And I'm sure in UP also, you're trying your level best how to include IKS at the HEI levels. So objective basically is to ensure that IKS provides a unique perspective. जिसे कहते हैं ना भारतीय दृष्टि, to solve the current, the emerging challenges especially. So IKS becomes a collective range of, Indian literature, the Vedic literature, the tribal folklore, and so on. There is a need for it, there is significance, because we are basically focusing on the holistic learning. We are focusing on the holistic development of the students too. So the value system, the traditional wisdom, the experiential learning, the contact and the convergence literature, how we are going to take up all these aspects as we go further into it. So a general introduction about the Indian classical literature. I've tried to limit it down by giving certain examples. So friends, you all can relate to it basically. So Indian classical literature, as you can see on the slide, it spans millennia. We have the oral as well as the written traditions. क्या है हमारे oral traditions? यानी कि जो मौखिक हमारी परंपराएं हैं, यही है हमारी धरोहर, right? How they have been spanning through thousands of years, harmonizing these traditions. There has been knowledge in it, wisdom. This written word came to us through the generations before it was actually written down. So we can say the oral traditions has played a great part in preserving the monumental texts, especially the Vedas. हम सभी को मालूम है कैसे ग्रंथों को कंठस्थ किया जाता था, सटीकता से गाया जाता था और पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी वो हमारे पास आए. So literature thus becomes, an amalgamation of religious, political, historical, and the aesthetic dimensions. Whether we talk about Upanishads, or we talk about Ramayana, or we talk about Bhagavad Gita, or the poetic brilliance of, say, Kalidas, Abhigyan Shakuntalam, कोई भी क्यों ना लें हम, पंचतंत्र टेल्स, whatever we take up, हर रचना को हम कह सकते हैं भारत की साहित्यिक पहचान में सभी ने एक योगदान दिया है. Immense contribution in this particular field. So हमारी जो सांस्कृतिक परंपरा है, this cultural practices, all this has been shaped by what? By the Indian classical literature. तो इसकी शिक्षा में हम देखते हैं अपना वर्तमान भी और भविष्य भी. So it is the past as well as the present. And now what are we doing? We are preparing it for our future generation. This heritage is finally going to come further. It is that enduring legacy which truly forms the foundation. स्कोप क्या है, थोड़ा सा हम स्कोप देखेंगे और फिर मैं वेरियस एस्पेक्ट्स देखूंगी किस हिसाब से क्लासिकल लिटरेचर को हम इंग्लिश लिटरेरी फील्ड में ले सकते हैं. What is the scope of this classical literature? There are so many genres. We talk about poetry or epics or drama. If we talk about the scientific texts or the philosophical texts, no matter in what languages there are. इतनी सारी विधाएं शामिल हैं इसमें, right? So it is an impressive scope, right? Each genre represents so many aspects of human experiences. We talk about Ramayana, we talk about Mahabharata, the monumental epics, which have actually blended the philosophy. Whether we take up the ethics through the storytelling form or through the various languages, Sanskrit, of course, was always the dominant one. There have been other languages too, like Prakrit, Tamil, Pali, Kannada. They also have also played a significant role in enriching the tradition. So this diversity, friends, if you talk about this particular diversity, it highlights India's rich linguistic heritage and also the cultural inquisitivity. विविधता क्या है ये? भारत की समृद्ध भाषाई धरोहर है हमारे सामने. So texts like Ramayana, we know that they have been translated. रामायण के ग्रंथों का अनुवाद भी हुआ है और रूपांतर भी हुआ है. And all this has greatly influenced everybody. So basically, what is Indian literature doing? It is enacting the role like a bridge. This is a bridge between the diverse linguistic traditions and also the enduring influence on the global civilizations. So let's come to some of these features. I hope my slides are visible to all of you.
Yes, ma'am, sure. Very clear.
Thank you so much. So let's see some of the key features of these Indian classical literature. टॉपिक इतना वाइड है कि इसको 40 मिनट्स में या 60 मिनट्स में कह पाना, बता पाना थोड़ा मुश्किल है. So what I'm trying to do is basically in a nutshell, by giving a few examples, we will try to interact about it. क्या है हमारे oral traditions? What are these oral traditions? We all have seen, especially the Rig Veda, the various aspects of these oral traditions. They have come down to us since centuries, memorized and then recited with so much of precision. So it has preserved its authenticity across the generations. हम देखते हैं ना, ऋग्वेद को पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी याद करके दोहराकर सुरक्षित रखा गया. And that is how we have got it in our form. We have used metaphors and symbolism, as you can see in Kalidas's Shakuntala. right? Nature has been used as a metaphor basically to reflect the emotions of characters and, of course, the ebb and flow of life. This narrative a universal and timeless quality. Figurative languages have been used in this. A lot of themes were there, universal themes like ethics, human emotions, and the spirituality. Bhavnaon ka saar hai. So all these allegories and the metaphors in these ancient classical texts, they have ended these texts, allowed them to remain relevant, they have given them insights, and they have also inspired both at the academic level and also for the creative endeavors. जैसे कहते हैं ना, it has got a testament for the universality. पूरे विश्व में हम कह सकते हैं प्रेरणा के स्रोत हैं. Some examples which I've already named earlier, like Ramayana and Mahabharata, these epics are the foundation of our Indian classical texts. They form the foundation of the literary as well as the cultural heritage. They portray, like Ramayana, if you take, it is a tale of idealism. It portrays the value of truth, honor, duty, sacrifices through the lives of the characters, especially Lord Ram. And you can see the relationship that is depicted in Ramayana between Ram and Sita or Ram and Lakshman. They are celebrated even today as models of love. कहते हैं ना, प्रेम, समर्पण, निष्ठा, bhakti, all this we are learning from these tales. If we talk about Mahabharata, which is the longest epic in world literature, it is also a complex narrative which basically is giving us a peep into the intricacies of human emotions, human behavior. It addresses the moral dilemmas and the questions of justice. You know, when Lord Krishna guides Arjun through the crisis of conscience, वो सारे धर्म की जटिल पहलुओं की व्याख्या हम करते हैं, न्याय पे सवाल है, नैतिक दुविधाएं हैं. So once you go through it, you get an answer to these aspects. So when you see these epics, whether we talk about Ramayana or Mahabharata, these are not merely meant for entertainment. They provide ethical and philosophical frameworks which have guided the societies. Yes, for centuries together. For example, Ramayana has inspired countless adaptations in films, television, from India's iconic serial by Ramanand Sagar. I'm sure we all remember that. Yes, to the retellings like The Sita Sings the Blues. Similarly, Mahabharata too. It has been reimagined in novels, plays, films, showcasing the timeless appeal of this particular epic. So friends, we can see how these epics, they have transcended the boundaries of time and geography, offering us these lessons on morality, on governance, complexities of human relationship, and they continue to inspire us still to educate the audiences even in the world. Now, I've taken certain aspects. I'll be talking about the classical poetry, classical drama, and the stories, how they all have made a great impact and how these need to be incorporated in the syllabi now. If you talk about classical poetry in the Indian literature, it is the treasure trove of artistic brilliance, timeless themes, whether we talk about Kalidas or we talk about Bhartari or we talk about the Tamil Sangam poets. Kalidas, as we all know, we're doing it in Hindi or Sanskrit or English, he is one of the greatest poets and the dramatist in Sanskrit literature. He intervenes the nature and the human emotions. If we talk about his work of, say, Ritu Samhar, which is the garland of seasons, right? He vividly describes the changing seasons, reflecting the human moods and the emotions in it. If we take example of Meghdut, where the cloud is the messenger. So what is Kalidas doing? He is personifies a cloud to convey the themes of separation and longing. कहते हैं ना, विरह और आशा के भाव हमें देखने को मिलते हैं. If we talk about Bhartari's Kshatriya, where he has talked about the 3 centuries, he expresses the century of renunciation, the transience, the century of love. So सांसारिक मोह और अस्थिरता की बात हमने इसमें की है. Talking about the Tamil Sangam poets, they have also taken a lot of, landscape, nature, evolution, all these aspects. So no matter what classical poets we are taking up, through their poetry, these writers engage with the human concerns like love, loss, longing, search for meanings. Consider Kalidas has said in Meghdut about the clouds that even the clouds, heavy with rain, cry as they drift away, just as my heart weeps at the separation. So classical poetry, it is relevant today because it speaks to the core of human experience. We need to introspect. If you take up Vedas, all the 4 Vedas, we have the Rig Veda hymns, the structure and the philosophies, the great influence of these Vedas on our Indian as well as other literatures. If we talk about the Upanishads, especially the Isha Upanishads, friends, it delves into the metaphysical questions, जहां हम बात करते हैं आत्मा और ब्रह्मा की. So this is what we are talking about, how through the English literary lens we are trying to unveil these Indian classical texts in the form of translations. Mahabharat's Bhagavad Gita, we all know the chapter 2 discusses the principles of Nishkarm, the selfless action. Or if you pick up Jayadev's Gita Govind of 12th century, where he talks about, the divine love of Krishna and Radha. So classical poetry has its own impact. These are just a few examples that have been taken up over here to give us a peep into the Indian classical treasure house. Drama in Indian classical literature, the most important and I can say the most interesting aspect. I will take it up quickly as yesterday when I was discussing with Dr. Parul, she told me that you've already had one session on the Ras theory yesterday, I guess. So drama in Indian classical literature, it is a profound medium, of course, which blends your storytelling, performance, the philosophical depths that is there. It is one of the most celebrated works in this tradition. हम चाहे किसी की भी बात करें, कालिदास की शकुंतला की बात करें, which is really a masterpiece, where you have the storytelling, कहानी, अभिनय, दार्शनिक, the गहराइयां, whatever we come to it. And then we talk about the love, fate, and the reconciliation. So the play, we all know the story. It narrates the story of King Dushyant and Shakuntala, portraying their love and the separation. If we talk about Bharat's Natya Shastra, it is an ancient work once again that lays the foundation of Indian aesthetics and the dramatic traditions with the Noras. Ras theory, this plays a pivotal role in the performing arts, guiding our actors and musicians. ये सब हम देखते हैं कि कैसे रस के जो सिद्धांत हैं अभिनेता संगीत का नृत्य की भावनाओं में निकल कर आते हैं. So drama becomes a tool for storytelling and also for the cultural integration. You see, friends, we incorporate what all? We have the myths, history, ethical lessons, and of course, both for entertainment and for educational purpose. What is drama basically doing? It is an integration of music, dance, and the dialogue. So it has got that holistic aspect with the verses and the rich metaphors that elevate, the narrative over here. तो हम देखते हैं कि इन कृतियों का पढ़ना, उसका मंचन करना, प्राचीन भारत की सांस्कृतिक या कलात्मक विरासत को हम किस तरह से सम्मान दे सकते हैं, कैसे हम इन्हें आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं इनकॉर्पोरेट करते हुए. And of course, like for example, this Mrich-Katika, you can see on the screen, the translated form is called the Little Clay Card, which is actually a political drama of Vishaka Datta, where the clever strategies of Chanakya, how he helped Chandragupta Maurya to establish the Mauryan Empire, basically. So all these aspects, somewhere or the other, have made a great thing. Talking about drama, I take this aspect further for interaction because with the drama comes the storytelling. And storytelling, friends, has been a great pedagogical tools also. I'm sure आप सभी को याद है किस तरह से कहानियां सुनाकर हमें सबसे पहले इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया इंडियन क्लासिकल ट्रेडिशन के साथ, इंडियन क्लासिकल लिटरेचर के साथ. So what is storytelling? We are basically unveiling its value as whether you heard the stories of Ved or Upanishad or Mahabharat or Ramayana. So India's educational heritage has come down to us through these stories, right? teachings bhi hoti hain, the teachings have come to us, and the transmission of knowledge also. तो चाहे मूल्य हो या नैतिकता हो या दर्शन, सभी कुछ सिखाती है हमें. In the Gurukuls or Tapavans or Pathshalas, whether we talk about the epics or the Purans, we talk about gods, heroes, or the legendary figures, the Jatka tales or the Pachtantra Kahaniya, right? So all these ancient Indian fables, they are bringing to us, they have become the mediums to impart these values, ethics, and philosophies to us. In story, we have the plot, the story plot, which is actually the events, then the lead of the story where the characters are there, and the setting of the story, the date, time, and the location, the struggle that becomes, which moves your plot further, the conflict and the obstacle, and finally the message that comes, which is the substance. तो कहानी कहने का जो माध्यम है, प्राचीन ज्ञान और आधुनिक साहित्यिक चर्चाओं के बीच क्या है? It acts as a bridge between them. Therefore, we say that yes, storytelling today is actually a pedagogical tool for us. And then the oral narratives that have come down to us. When we talk about these oral narratives, historical narratives bhi hai hamare. For example, the life of Gandhi or the events of freedom have come down to us. We have heard mythological stories which help us in problem solving or in critical thinking. Then, of course, literature and drama. Even in science, you have STEM concepts, narrating the discovery of gravity by science fiction stories of Newton also. Then the values, of course, it is relatable. Then the cultural preservative. I'm sure we all remember the stories of Birbal's wit and the legends of Raja Bhoj. Experiential learning has come down to us, and even the teaching of vocabulary and grammar to a certain extent. Our LSRW skills also come up with these oral traditions. So these oral narratives in the form of stories, the way it is coming down to us, have actually preserved our cultural tradition, our cultural literary texts, and also transmitted it. So they become the rich reservoirs of cultural heritage, of wisdom to us. So the spoken words, they become the encoded values. Oral narratives, they are that connecting link, the living link between the past and the present today. So for a collective memory, they become the tools. So friends, see how the cultural transmission of beliefs, of tradition, of social norms have come up through the mythology and folklore. Even the ecological wisdom, people gathering around the fire, exchanging and telling the anecdotes, right? The regional literature, which also has become important sometimes. And now this is even coming in the pictorial art, the saris that we wear, the kalamkaris, and you can say the oral, the picture of Ram and Sita on the pallos we see. We find that how knowledge is reproduced, it is preserved, and once again, it is conveyed from generation to generation. This is how it is coming up, the sequential arts. So importance of oral narratives and the storytelling has become very, very important in the Indian cultural tradition. Coming to the philosophical texts. Some philosophical texts we've already taken up, but yes, to talk about Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the contribution that they have made in the global philosophy, friends. So we see that philosophical texts in the Indian classical literature, basically they are offering to us profound insights into the nature of reality, self-awareness, principles of ethical living, and how they transcend their historical context to remain totally relevant in today's world. Upanishads, they explore the ultimate reality, the inner self, thought-provoking questions about existence, consciousness, universe, introspection, and also the intellectual inquiry. And what is Bhagavad Gita? A spiritual guide. So Bhagavad Gita tells you about the duties of life, self-realization. It addresses Arjun's moral dilemmas on the battlefield, and also at the same time offering those timeless lessons on decision-making, leadership, ethical responsibility. कृष्ण के जो संदेश हैं, कैसे संतुलन, वैराग्य या कर्म की ओर लेके आते हैं, तो हमारे चाहे व्यक्तिगत चीजें हैं वो या व्यावसायिक विकास से रिलेटेड हैं. They help us to navigate and to find an answer, to find a way. We find a clarity even in the decision making when we go to these texts. So the relevance of these philosophical texts, friends, is on the mindfulness, self-discipline, and the ethical conduct. It helps us in the form of self-help and also as a spiritual literature. तो ये जो जर्नी है, ये जो टेक्स्ट से हमारे, it is not only taking us to the pursuit of knowledge, it is a lifelong journey, right? एक आजन्म यात्रा है जो आज भी उतनी ही प्रासंगिक है जितनी ही पहले थी. Then these are some ancient Indian sites. I got this picture from the net, and I've taken a few. How these scientific and didactic works has also made an impact, especially Charak, right? So you can see Indian classical literature, Charak Samhita and Archas by Kautilya. These are great examples of, how knowledge was systematically documented and also applied to address the real challenges that we face in life. Archas, it is a seminal treatise on economics, politics, statecraft, military strategies, governance, diplomacy, etc. And Kautilya's work, this emphasizes the pragmatic conditions, pragmatic solutions, also maintaining the ethical considerations. Charak Samhita ki yadi hum baat kare, this is the very cornerstone of Ayurveda, one of the world's oldest medical system. यहाँ हम बात करते हैं स्वास्थ्य की, रोग निवारण की, उपचार की, चिकित्सीय नैतिकता की. All these aspects integrate a holistic, approach to wellness. So this text not only, outlines the diagnostic practice, but it is also emphasizing the ethics in the medical practice, underscoring the healer's duty to prioritize the well-being of their patients. So there is that practical discipline. एक सामूहिक भलाई के लिए किस तरह से हम वर्क करें, how to get insights but also discover how to address these modern challenges. There are so many regional literary traditions. So what I've done is I've taken a few over here which will give you an idea how these regional literary traditions can help us in order to get a peep into the actual trove of, you can say, a treasure trove of cultural and linguistic diversity. This regional literature has contributed significantly to the richness of Indian classical literature, whether it is the Tamil Sangam literature or the Pali canon text or Jain literature or Prakrit examples may be there. Tamil literature, it is produced during the Sangam period. So we have the historical and the cultural context in it. We try to understand the Dravidian history through this. तो क्षेत्रीय साहित्य की जो परंपराएं हैं, we get through the translations of the literature that is coming from here. Pali canon है, बौद्ध दर्शन का जो मुख्य आधार है, दंपत. It leads us to the path of enlightenment, compassion, mindfulness, and the non-attachment. The simplicity of the Pali and Prakrit literature. तो ये सभी जो हमारी परंपराएं हैं, ये सभी जो हमारी कहना चाहिए क्षेत्रीय पहचान को केवल सुरक्षित नहीं कर रही, बल्कि ये वैश्विक मंच पर भी हम कह सकते हैं हमें वो रिकग्निशन दे रही है. विविधता में एकता का जो संदेश है, that is what we get from it. And apart from these traditions, there are so many others also. If we go to the Kannada literature translated, or Telugu literature, or Bengali literature, or Marathi literature, Odia literature, Gujarati literature, just to name a few. Kannada literature में हमारा है Amod Varsha, where you come to know about the poetics and the literary criticism. And then we have, the Vachans by Akka Mahadevi, which is a mystical poetry, and she's taken the feminist perspectives in these poetries. In Telugu literature, we have Nannaya's Mahabharatam, means retelling of Mahabharata from a different perspective. Bengali literature, Jayadev's Gita Govind, or Marathi literature, you have Dhyaneshwari by Sant Dhyaneshwar. Tukaram's Abhanga, or let's take Odia literature, the Saral Mahabharat by Saral Das, or Gujarati, Narsingh Mehta's Bhakti poetry. So no matter which particular region we may be catering to, but the translation of these texts and the way these authors have taken the Indian classical texts in their works, this will give us a lot of peep into the Indian tradition, Indian knowledge tradition. And when we go to these texts, they also help us to understand the cultural and the ethical perspectives, यानी कि सांस्कृतिक और साथ साथ नैतिक दृष्टिकोण भी हमारा है. once again, if I link this or relate this to the NEP 2020, we have to see to the holistic personality and the holistic aspect of an individual, where the values, the ethics, philosophy, culture, everything needs to be embedded in these students. So लैंगिक जो दृष्टिकोण है, the gender perspectives in particular, they are integral to these discussions. So, I mean, this is one full-fledged topic which we can take up for a different lecture, like Sita, Draupadi, the Sangam poets, how they have become a powerful representation of women's role in society. समाज के जो नियम है, भूमिकाएं हैं, आदर्श नारित्व की जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, अन्याय के खिलाफ किस तरह से आवाज उठाई गई, या परंपरागत जो हमारे मूल्य हैं उनको कैसे चुनौती दी गई. So looking at these aspects, when we look at these characters from Ramayana and from Mahabharata, we come to know how they have challenged the traditional gender roles, talking about the views of righteousness as well as justice. They have been very important. तो हम देखते हैं किस तरह से हमने नैतिक दुविधाओं का वर्णन किया है और कैसे वो उससे बाहर आए हैं. सामाजिक नियम मानव गरिमा का यदि हनन करते हैं तो उसका विरोध कैसे हुआ, right? So all these grants, all these aspects, they have become a mirror to the society, and at the same time they have also given us as a critiques of society. That is why I've taken this particular things, how the tale of an empress reflects the societal norms in those ages, the roles and the hierarchies. Comparative literature, agar yahan research scholars hamare audience mein hai, I'm sure they will follow it, that these days when the research scholars come, we always tell them, why don't you take up the comparative literature? Because then we say that actual research is being done. See, comparative literature, it offers that fascinating insight into the shared themes and also the narrative structures across, diverse literary traditions. When you pick up the parallels between the Greek and the Indian epics, like for example, Mahabharata and Iliad, I've taken on the screen just to give an example, what kind of striking similarities we find in the portrayal of heroism, war, and the human conditions. So both the epics, whether we talk about Mahabharata or about Iliad, in the Mahabharata, characters of like Arjun, they grapple with the moral dilemmas. Existential questions are there. The questions regarding fate and divine intervention is there. If you take up the Buddhist literature, how they had influenced the Chinese and the Japanese thought. Dhampad, the Buddhist text, and the Lotus Sutra. This has greatly shaped, you can say, the philosophical traditions of East Asia. So all these comparative literatures have given a kind of peak. So many themes are explored through the cultures. We are getting an answer to it through the ancient literary traditions. So yeah, one more slide is there on this. Yeah. See, I've put in certain ideas over here for the students, how they can come up with the comparative literature. For example, if you take up Mahabharata's comparison with T.S. Eliot's Wasteland. T.S. Eliot has used Mahabharata's Bhagavad Gita and the Shanti Par for its theme of duty, of sacrifice, and the spiritual renewal. You can see on the screens, friends, that Dayadham Datya means give, sympathize, and control at the same time. So we can see, even in the ethical and dilemmas of Arjun in Mahabharata, they parallel the fragmental consciousness of the modern man the way Eliot has surfaced it. Then, one more example is here from Ramayana. A comparison can be made between Ramayana and the Paradise Lost. The ethical dilemmas. Both epics explore the theme of duty, morality, and the divine justice. Sita's abduction by Ravan in the Ramayana, this can be compared to the Eve's temptation in Paradise Lost. Or you can take up the Pachtantra and the Aesop's fables. Yes, both are allegories, both are based on the animal stories and how they impart wisdom and the moral lessons. So this contributes greatly to the global, you can say, moral storytelling too. Then Kalidasa's Shakuntala and Shakespeare's Tempest. Yes. So, or you can take, for example, Bhagavad Gita and Self-Reliance of Emerson, the Jatka Tales and the Canterbury Tales. So these are just a few examples how you can take up, comparative literature and bring out with something new. Right? So coming back to it, after taking up poetry, drama, certain theories, storytelling, what is basically the relevance of this Indian classical literature in the modern times? Literature, yes, we know, is a mirror. All the literature students know this. Mirror to contemporary ethics as well as to governance. Madam Parul, are you saying anything?
Yes, ma'am, we can see your PPT. It is so interesting.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful PPT.
Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. So you can see the relevance in modern times. See, it is not only a mirror, but at the same time, all the complex issues of, the justice, duty, morality, ethics, everything that is pertinent in today's political and the social context, we can pick it up. So these texts, the Indian classical texts, they are offering us timeless wisdom on governance, on leadership, responsibility of rulers, councils, etc. And this Indian classical literature, it has continued inspired the films, novels, and even the modern philosophy. Yes, there's so many retellings of Mahabharata have been there, including C. Rajgopalachari's Mahabharata and the Palace of Illusion by Chitra Banerjee, just to give a few examples. So we are finding a fresh perspective on these epics. Films have been based like Lagan or Bahubali. There's so many. I'm just giving a few examples. How the themes of heroism, justice, morality have been taken up from these ancient texts. So reinforcing the power of these stories once again to resonate with the people across the generations. That is what is important. तो आज जब हम न्याय या हम प्रशासन नैतिक विषयों को चुनौतियों के बारे में लगातार जब ये सामने आती हैं तो हमारा ये प्राचीन भारतीय साहित्य है कैसे उसके आधुनिक विचार और चुनौतियों के बीच इट इज वर्किंग एज अ ब्रिज एक सेतु का कार्य कर रहा है दैट इज द रेलेवेंस ऑफ दीज टेक्स्ट इन दीज मॉडर्न टाइम्स ऑफ कोर्स ये सब तो है हम कर रहे हैं बट देयर सो मेनी चैलेंजेस एंड अपॉर्चुनिटीज related to these Indian texts. And what are these challenges? The biggest challenge before us is that due to the need of accurate translations, it gets difficult. We are also translating few words, but once again, we come to it that personal bias should not come when we are coming to accurate translation. Do we have skilled translators to translate literature from Sanskrit, from Tamil, from Pali? We don't have to simply just convey the meaning, but the cultural and the philosophical context should not be spoiled. That is the issue before us. So this poses a great challenge. Without this nuanced understanding, without understanding the richness of these texts, this can lead to a misinterpretation. If we go for the selective readings, these rise all the more. The classical texts are sometimes reduced to simply, simplified versions, short stories. But if we keep it to these kind of selective readings, they will obstruct, they will hinder the deeper understanding of these texts. As far as the opportunities are concerned, for the preservation and for the classical literature, interdisciplinary research can be very, very good. That can be a positive step, we can say. Importance of authentic translations cannot be overstated. Technology can play a crucial role over here, and already work has been done in this particular direction for the preservation of ancient texts. We have digital archives are there, online platforms are there, so that these texts can be stored, shared, and also accessed by the scholars, by the public in general. Digitizing the ancient manuscripts helps them to safeguard against the physical decay. And of course, make them available for study and for translation for future. So प्रेरणा के सूत्र ये हमारे हैं, potential रखना है हमको, how to preserve them, how to go on with them. Friends, I made a few slides which you can quickly, I'm not going to read it out, you can just go through it. See, there's so many aspects of Bhagavad Gita which can be taken up. So many aspects which can be taken up in order to incorporate the IKS in our syllabi. Or if you're taking up any particular branch, be it the story of Draupadi, which is going to teach us about gender dynamics, about power and resilience, or the game of dice, we can have short stories telling us about the righteousness and the consequence of actions. The trial of Arjuna's skill, the theme of identity, or if we talk about the story of Pandavas in exile, the war at Kurukshetra, or the story of Eklavya. So many aspects. These are just to name a few which can be taken up in order to incorporate IKS. Or if you're taking selections from Ramayana, we can have the Ayodhya Kand or Aranya Kand, the Book of Beauty or the Book of War, Uttarakhand, the Hanuman Chalisa, or the Book of Lanka. So there are so many selections that can be picked up in order to take Ramayana. Recently, as Madam just told you, we have framed the syllabus for first year UG. We have taken certain aspects from these slides that I'm showing you all. Anand Vardhan's Dhyan Lok, the concept of dhani or the nature of ras or the types of dhani or alankar, these may be included or inculcated. Or if you're taking up a comparative research, you can take up aspects from these. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is again to give an example, and I'm sure many of you are already working in this direction to know about the introduction to yoga, the definition of yoga, the various components and limbs of yoga, the nature of the mind, and finally the practice of asana. So no matter what branch of Indian knowledge system or Indian literature or the classical text you're picking up, everywhere there is so much to delve deep into it. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's, these are certain works which are there in the translation which can be taken up. I'm not reading them out. You can click the slides if you want. You can take a pic. So there's so many aspects of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, so many novels to take up. Aurobindo Ghosh, this I worked this morning because there's so much aspect of Aurobindo which can be taken up for a research. For example, if we talk about Life Divine, it is a philosophical text which tells us about the nature of existence and consciousness. Essays on Gita, which is actually a reinterpretation of Gita as a text, which tells you about the Karma Yoga, the Gyan, the devotion, Bhakti, and Karma. Then the Secret of the Vedas, where Aurobindo has focused on the deeper symbolic meanings. Hints to the mystic fire. And thus the Vedic hymns of Rig Veda have been taken up and how they are dedicated to Agni. Then Savitri, a very famous book, epic poem on a tale from Mahabharata, which deals with the themes of love, death, and the spiritual victory. Letters on Yoga. This is once again on Yoga, Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and the Karma Yoga. Also, all these texts are actually bridging up the ancient Indian texts and the modern philosophical, we can say, inquiries. Here is a slide on Rabindranath Tagore, like Gaur Barre, the translation is there, or Post Office Daggar. I'm sure some of the students have already gone through these works earlier. Or Rabindranath Tagore's, A Grain of Sand, Gitanjali, Gora, or Kabuliwala. So these were a few examples. Or Mulkraj Anand's works are there, like Kuli, Two Leaves and a Bud, Village, Across the Black Waters, Seven Summers, The Big Heart, The Sword and the Sickle. So I've just put in a few novels over here, which gives you an idea about what Indian classical literature and what is that repository of wisdom and ethics, or the translations of the works like Mahadevi Verma. So there are so many. These are just to name a few to give an example, friends. There are certain references that I picked up in order to prepare the presentation. And finally, let me tell you that Indian classical literature, it is an extraordinary repository of wisdom, of ethics and creativity, offering an insightful window into the cultural and the philosophical fabric of ancient India. So all these works that we have just gone through, they offer like a bridge between the past and the present. And they're also linking the ancient teachings to the contemporary issues now. So the stories and teachings from these texts are not only important for scholars, but for anyone who's trying to seek to understand the deeper aspects of life. They encourage reflection on personal and the societal values. There needs to be clarity and guidance. आधुनिक जीवन में मार्गदर्शन के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है, और यही हमारी कहना चाहिए वैश्विक हमारी साहित्यिक धरोहर भी है. Finally, I've ended up with a Faulkner's quote, and this is a thought-provoking quote by William Faulkner: "The past is not dead; it is not even past." So this quote expresses the essence of Indian classical literature as it remains a vital force, continually shaping and influencing the present. So by engaging with these text trends, we can bridge up the gap, allowing the wisdom of ancient India to continue guiding us even in the future. So through its narratives, philosophy, ethical teachings, Indian classical literature remains an invaluable resource to us. So let us continue to explore, study, and apply its lessons, ensuring that its timeless wisdom is never lost. Thank you so much for giving so much of your precious time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Vinita Singh Chawdhry, for your wonderful lecture, touching all the aspects of Indian classical literature from the Vedas, Upanishads, Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Arthashastra, Charak Samhita, and many, many more, dwelling on the ethics and spirituality, self-discipline, and contribution of these texts on a wider, field of writers and on global philosophy, and how these texts have influenced the works of later writers like Tagore, Aurobindo Ghosh, Mahadevi Verma, and so many others. You also, stress the need for comparative literature, which is so important for interdisciplinary research and critical thinking. And not only that, you also talked about T.S. Eliot, the Western writers, T.S. Eliot, his Wasteland, how he has been influenced by the Eastern philosophy inherent in the Bhagavad Gita. John Milton's Paradise Lost also, you compare that with our Indian classical text, Ramayana, and the relevance in the modern times of all these Indian classical texts, which have inspired so many plays, novels, and films. You also talked of the challenges and opportunities to the accurate translations, but then, there are so many challenges that, the main idea conveyed might be lost somewhere. So thank you so much, ma'am. And now I invite Dr. Poonam Lakhanpal, ma'am, to deliver the vote of thanks to our resource person.
Thank you so much, Parul Madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Before that, before we call upon Professor Poonam Lakhanpal, we have our principal ma'am, Professor Nivedita Malik. And I once again extend a very warm welcome to our progressive and dynamic principal, Professor Nivedita Kumari, who is strongly aligned to the virtues of honesty, integrity, sincerity, commitment, and dedication. Ma'am is extremely active and ensures that her time is well spent in progressive and constructive activities for the continued growth of the college. I request Principal Ma'am to say a few words on this occasion. Over to Principal Ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Parul ma'am. Especially thanks to Vinita ma'am, Professor Vinita ji, who enlightened us today about literature perspective in the context of Indian knowledge system. Unfortunately, I could not attend your lecture fully due to some unavoidable circumstances, ma'am. Thanks to everybody organizer of this series, Parul ji, Poonam Lakhanpal ji, and their team. I'm on the way due to some connection problems, maybe disconnect. And once again, thank you all of you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nivedita Madam. So nice of you. Thanks to all of you for this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. We are very privileged that we can organize this session for the students as well as faculty. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Now over to Professor Poonam Lakhanpal for the vote of thanks.
मैम अनम्यूट कीजिए अब अपने आप को, पूनम मैडम।
सॉरी मैं अपने विद्यालय, अपनी प्राचार्य और इस कार्यक्रम की समस्त संयोजन समिति की ओर से मैं पूनम लखनपाल, प्रभारी संस्कृत विभाग, प्रभारी संयोजक भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा, आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देती हूँ। 5 दिन की श्रृंखला में आपका भले ही आज अंतिम दिवस रहा, लेकिन उसने इस पूरी सीरीज के सार को बड़े सुंदर ढंग से प्रस्तुत किया।
थैंक यू सो मच।
संस्कृत साहित्य के विद्यार्थी होने के नाते मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि आपने इंग्लिश लिटरेरी लेंसेज के थ्रू एंशिएंट टेक्स्ट को देखते हुए भी उसकी जो सतत गतिशील प्रतिध्वनि है, एको है, उसको वेद से लेकर वर्तमान साहित्य तक प्रस्तुत किया। वास्तव में हमारा भारतीय साहित्य कोश है, भंडार है। किसी भी क्षेत्र को उठाकर ले लीजिए, हर वस्तु का बिंदु, आधार, मूलभूत सिद्धांत उसमें मिलते हैं, और ऐसा ही आपने प्रस्तुत किया।
थैंक यू।
भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा भले ही प्राचीन है, लेकिन सतत गतिशील है, और उसका महत्व जितना पुराने समय में था उतना ही आज भी है। हमारी भारतीय दृष्टि कभी सीमित नहीं रही। उसने जब भी देखा, वैश्विक कल्याण के लिए देखा। वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की भावना जागृत की। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःख भाग् भवेत्। उसकी प्रार्थनाएं सदैव ऐसे ही रहें। हमारी परंपरा श्रुति परंपरा रही। उन श्रुतियों को फिर स्मृति में प्रतिध्वनित किया गया। उन स्मृतियों को फिर मनन के माध्यम से, दर्शन के माध्यम से, फिलॉसफी में प्रकट किया गया। और हमारे सिद्धांत भी क्या कहते हैं? श्रवण, मनन, निदिध्यासन। पहले हम सुने, फिर उनका निरंतर मनन करें, और उसके बाद जो सार पाएं उनका अच्छी प्रकार से धारण करें। यही हमारा ज्ञान है, जो हमारे बहुत बड़े साहित्य के विनाश के बाद भी आज जीवित है। उसके ग्रंथ हैं, अनुवाद के माध्यम से, सिद्धांतों के माध्यम से। उसके अनुवाद प्रायः हर देश की भाषा में हुए हैं, और गीता तो सबसे अधिक टीका वाला ग्रंथ रहा है। गीता का सिर्फ एक कृष्ण का चरित्र ही उठा लीजिए पूरे भारतीय साहित्य में, तो उसका हर रूप शिक्षाप्रद है, लोक कल्याण के लिए है। युद्ध में खड़े भयभीत अर्जुन को जीवन संघर्ष में लड़ने की प्रेरणा देने वाला है। श्रीमद् भागवत पुराण में अगर रास पंचाध्यायी के माध्यम से उसका रसिक रूप, उसका रासलीला प्रियतम रूप व्यक्त किया गया है, तो गीता में उसने सुदृढ़ सिद्धांत दिए हैं जीवन दर्शन के। कर्म, अकर्म, विकर्म, और सबसे प्रमुख निष्काम कर्म को समझाया। हर स्तर का साहित्य, हर स्तर के व्यक्ति के लिए हमारी भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा में विद्यमान है। चाहे वो बच्चों के लिए पंचतंत्र की कथाएं हों, चाहे अभिज्ञान शाकुंतल के माध्यम से आज की नवयुवतियों को दी जाने वाली शिक्षा हो कि कभी भी एकांत में किसी पुरुष पर विश्वास न करे। बहुत बड़ा सूत्र है आज की युवतियों के लिए, आज के सामाजिक दुराचार में सुरक्षा के लिए। उसमें कण्व का संदेश हर माता पिता के लिए उपयोगी है। आज की हर युवती जो नई गृहस्थी बसा रही है उसके लिए बहुत उपयोगी है। व्यक्तिगत, सामाजिक, इवन राजनीतिकों पर भी इसका प्रभाव पड़ा, जो तिलक और गांधी के रूप में हमें दृष्टिगत होता है। आपने बहुत सही कहा मैम कि पास्ट समाप्त नहीं होता, वो अनुभवों का निचोड़ है जो हमें वर्तमान को सार्थक जीने में मदद करता है और भविष्य का मार्गदर्शक होता है। ठीक उसी प्रकार से जैसे आज आपका लेक्चर हमारे टीचर्स के लिए, स्टूडेंट के लिए और भविष्य में आने वाली और छात्राओं के लिए बहुत उपयोगी है, रहेगा। और ये हम चाहेंगे, ये रिकॉर्डिंग हमारे पास है और हम इसे समय समय पर न केवल इंग्लिश के विद्यार्थियों को बल्कि हर विषय के विद्यार्थियों को ये दिखाएं और उन्हें बताएं कि किसी भी वस्तु को, विषय को कैसे प्रस्तुत किया जाता है। आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन वाकई ही प्रशंसनीय है। मैं संस्कृत की दृष्टि से अंग्रेजी के लेंसेज के थ्रू इस भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा के ग्रंथों को और विचारधारा को देख पाई। आपका बहुत बहुत आभार है, समस्त विद्यालय परिवार की ओर से, शिक्षिकाओं की ओर से और हमारे विद्यार्थियों की ओर से। और अवसर मिलने पर हम पुनः चाहेंगे कि आपका वक्तव्य किसी न किसी रूप में हम सुनते रहें। धन्यवाद मैम, धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच पूनम जी, थैंक यू। इट वाज सच अ प्लेजर। जैसा कि पारुल मैम ने बताया, मैं यहीं की स्टूडेंट हूँ और निवेदिता मैडम ने इतनी अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी मुझे दी, और पूनम मैडम ने और निवेदिता मैम ने मुझे एडजस्ट भी कर लिया ऑनलाइन। थैंक यू ऑल सो मच, सो नाइस ऑफ यू। इट्स सच अ प्लेजर बीइंग हियर।
मैम आप हमारी एलुमनाई, आपका हमेशा स्वागत है।
थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू,
थैंक यू ऑल।
Professor Vinita ji, it was so nice of you to join us despite your medical issues. We are very thankful to you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
पारुल जी रोज आती है ना मुझे कहने में, एक भी दिन के प्रोग्राम में नहीं जा पाई, तो मैं सोचा था आज मैं ऑनलाइन जरूर जुड़ जाऊँ शुरू से।